Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at another one of the move updates from the Season 20 balance patch, and that is the massive increase in damage given to Shadow Punch. Previously, Shadow Punch was a move that dealt 40 damage for 35 energy, but this season they moved it all the way up to 55 for 35 energy. Moves are usually increased by 5 damage if that, so a 15 damage increase is pretty massive. And today, I'm going to be shoutcasting some battles from Firestar featuring his rank 1 Shadow Gengar that we shoutcasted last season, but now with a lot more damage. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at rank 1 Shadow Gengar in the Open Ultra League. Nightmare lead in the first match, leading the Panda Bear into Clefable. He's going to save switch into his own, and the opponent switches out and brings in Heliolisk. Baiting out the normal type is incredibly important because Firestar is not opting to run Sludge Bomb, but rather he's opting for the Mono Ghost moveset on Shadow Gengar. Heliolisk gets a shield with a parabolic charge and gets the defense boost. They can now live the Moonblast. They actually decide to double shield in a bit of a surprising turn of events. Heliolisk is going to fire off another parabolic charge. That's going to get Clefable low. Clefable is going to be able to withstand the damage, make the Moonblast, and while this will not KO, this is going to set up a nice farm down for Pangoro when it enters the field. In comes Pangoro. Pangoro not going to be shielding as there is a Clefable waiting for it once Helio gets KO'd. Aggressive switch into Gengar. Up energy in the back is a Shadow Feraligatr, but with the energy lead, able to outpace, make the Shadow Ball, one-hit KO the Feraligatr. And I don't think there's any hope for the opponent remaining, as all they have left is their own Clefable. Clefable has lightning fast pacing with Swift, but they would need 2 Swifts, and they're not going to get there before the Shadow Ball is reached. Swift will be shielded, and now it's all over for the Clefable. Shadow Ball plus a Shadow Claw picks up the KO. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, leading Pangoro into Virizion. The bad leads continue. Going to stay in for a little bit, save switch into Clefable. And again, Clefable continues to be met with Heliolisk. Another bait. Can he go 2 for 2 on the baits? Yes, he can. In both matches, getting Heliolisk to shield Swift. And now, getting that shield advantage and baiting out the normal type. Hopefully, Gengar will be able to sweep in the endgame. We're going to see, oh my goodness, he accidentally tabs down and tabs back, only gets a great as a result, makes the Swift, but loses charge attack priority, and we're actually going to see the shield come through as Heliolisk fires off another parabolic charge. This Swift will be able to pick up the knockout and win switch. Heliolisk says no. Double shielding. Heliolisk does win charge attack priority, so it's going to fire off the breaking swipe to pick up the knockout. And Firestar very okay with letting this go, and instead just going for a 1-0 shield Gengar in the endgame. In comes Virizion. Virizion will be smacked with a close combat. Close combat will hit for significant damage. Shadow Gengar answered with Shadow Ampharos. And Gengar is going to go for the Shadow Punch. I'm very curious to see this damage right here. Shadow Punch hits so hard. What the heck? That damage is outrageous. That Shadow Punch I thought was not going to do nearly that damage. That damage upgrade is immediately noticeable. Oh my goodness. Leaf Blade does not KO. Back-to-back bad leads, back-to-back opponents conceding the match. Let's make that 3 bad leads in a row. Pangoro into another Clefable. We're going to see a Clefable mirror as long as the opponent throws first, which they do. Unfortunately, Firestar does not get a full sneak, which means there'll always be a Fairy Wind behind in the mirror. Opponent switches out of the mirror and brings in Ampharos. Ampharos takes big damage from the Moonblast. We actually see an attack drop come through. That's a very rare chance of occurring. Ampharos will be able to undo that attack drop with a Trailblazer damage. Now back to normal. Clefable tries for the farm down, but Ampharos says no. Quickly putting on Do Not Disturb mid-battle, but it's only a brutal swing, so it will not knock out. And this Clefable is loaded. In comes a Gyarados. Gyarados is going to take quite a lot of damage here. The Moonblast is no-shielded as Gyarados tries to call the Swift bait. Well, now a Swift is probably going to knock out this Gyarados. Swift is going to be shielded up by the Gyarados. Gyarados still cannot farm down. This Clefable putting in so much work. Swift after Swift in this matchup. Looks like the opponent may have, I was going to say may have lagged out there, but it looks like the move actually does go through and pick up the knockout. And now, it does look like either the opponent lagged out or they force closed the app. But either way, with Shadow Gengar on Clefable, this game was over. And the Gyarados, unfortunately, tried to farm down and was not able to do so. So, Honestly, my guess is the opponent probably just closed the app after that move was reached, realizing they weren't able to win the game. This will be a great matchup in the next game, as this opponent, Beelzeboy, actually got 4th place at the Pokemon GO World Championships last month. Pangoro versus the Shadow Drapion, going to go for the Night Slash bait, and it does get shielded by the opponent. Most Drapions are on Aqua Tail Crunch, which means that one move is very survivable for the Panda Bear. Pangoro going to fire off the close combat. This will do a ton of damage. Opponent double shielding that Drapion, full committing to the Drapion to try and get rid of Pangoro. Pangoro is going to shield. Pangoro only opting to go for the Night Slash here. I guess expecting the opponent to CMP tie there, but the opponent did not. Instead, the opponent is going to massively overfarm. And that play of not committing to the close combat may come back to haunt here, as now the Drapion is still alive, and it can inflict some damage onto this Clefable. Clefable is going to no shield. Drapion goes for the Aqua Tail. Clefable has the Swift, but would lose charge attack priority, so just opting to get the free energy with the Fairy Wind. And just like that, so much damage has been taken in the back. Oh no, Beelzeboy has his own Pangoro. This game is over. Pangoro hits way too hard. Shadow Gengar up energy can accomplish some miracles, but I don't think it's knocking out a Pangoro. Gonna fire off the Shadow Punch. Hold on, wait. I stand corrected. This might KO. This will be really close. Shadow Gengar does not KO. That boosted damage on the Shadow Punch is wicked on this Shadow Gengar. Oh my goodness. We're going to see a farm down. Opponent still has energy on that Drapion. This Drapion refusing to quit. And unfortunately for Firestar, it's not a Pokemon that can get one shot with Moonblast. It's a Cresselia in the back. And Cresselia is going to get the Psycho Cut down and take the win. Hopping into the next match, Pangoro finally catching a break as it gets a terrific lead against Malamar. Opponent switches out into Feraligatr. Feraligatr is going to get outpaced since switching does take a turn. Pangoro going for the Night Slash bait, and the bait is successful. Oh, this is going to get very difficult for Feraligatr very quickly. Pangoro will commit the shield as Hydro Cannon would do a lot of damage. Pangoro opting for another bait, not going to full send the close combat. Does the opponent decide to call it? Yes, they do. And now things get a little tricky. Pangoro is going to no-shield. Hydro Cannon will not KO. It does quite a lot of damage. In comes Galar Weezing, and that's answered with the Shadow Gengar. But Weezing is going to be able to spam out these brutal swings at a terrifying rate. Gengar makes it to the Shadow Ball, but baits with the Shadow Punch on charge attack priority. The Shadow Punch bait is going to be no-shielded by the opponent, but that still does massive, massive damage. Brutal Swing connects. Gengar barely able to hang on. Gengar does get a full farm down and leaves with a Shadow Ball loaded for the Malamar. Malamar is going to have to respect this. This would do way too much damage, but poor Malamar, after shielding that move, is now going to get KO'd with a super effective Moonblast, as Malamar runs Foul Play and Superpower, both resisted by the pure Fairy typing. Clefable is going to go for the Moonblast. This should be night-night for the Malamar here. Moonblast picks up the KO. Good night, Malamar. In comes Feraligatr, and that Swift pacing on Clefable is elite. Swift KOs that opponent and takes the win. Hopping into the next match, leading Pangoro into Registeel. Unbelievably good lead for Pangoro. Pangoro has such a pacing advantage here, able to outpace by a full 2.5 seconds, getting to the close combat before the Focus Blast is reached. The close combat no shielded by the opponent, as they know they can win the zeros, but Pangoro is just more than happy to shield itself. In comes Golisopod. No direct response to a Golisopod, so just going to chip with a Night Slash and continue to stay in. Look for a switch out now into the Clefable. Clefable down on energy, but any one move will not knock out here. Golisopod will fire off the Liquidation, fishing for the debuff. The debuff does not come through, and now Clefable goes for the bait. The Swift does get shielded by Golisopod, and as someone who played against some Clefables today, shielding a Swift is an absolutely terrible feeling, because you know they're going to reach a Moonblast in a frighteningly low amount of turns, and that Moonblast is going to do a lot of damage. The Swift is shielded. Opponent shielding 2 Swifts. Oh, that is so unfortunate. The Clefable is only going to be able to make a 3rd Swift here, and that will not KO. But the opponent used 2 shields on 2 moves that do not do a lot of damage. In comes Pangoro to absorb this energy. It will be the Aerial Ace, the switch to the Gengar. In the back, they have their own Clefable. This can only be a Swift. Yeah, Gengar is getting no shield. This is double resisted. That does nothing. And now Gengar just gets way too much energy. You had to commit to the Moonblast to force Gengar to throw, because now you just get Shadow Balled. Galissapod gets farmed out too, and that's a Shadow Gengar sweep. This thing up energy is frightening. Tough lead in the next match, Pangoro versus the Shadow Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite is going to be at a pacing disadvantage in this matchup, but a Night Slash is survivable for the Dragonite, whereas thanks to these non-stop Dragon Breaths, a Dragon Claw might not be. Pangoro is going to no-shield, calling the Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw, oh my goodness, the high-rank Panda Bear barely hangs on to deliver another Night Slash and get a clutch shield advantage for the backline. In comes Clefable. We see an immediate pivot out into Greedent, and oh my goodness, if you have a mono ghost Pokemon in the back, you've got to be so happy to see an opponent switch in a Greedent, as that Greedent would have instantly delivered them a victory if it remained in the back for the Gengar. Clefable more than happy to just use itself as a damage sponge here, absorb these hits, take these body slams. Greedent's pacing is worse due to the Mudshot rework, make another Moonblast, and look to pick up a knockout. The hope is that whatever they have in the back is going to be weak to that Gengar. They're not going to be sending in the Dragonite. They're going to be sending in their third Pokemon here. It's a Registeel, and in the 2-shield, Shadow Gengar is about to go off. Shadow Gengar met with the Dragonite. We will see the shield on the Dragon Claw and the farm down. And Shadow Gengar is just too far ahead in terms of energy. This game is over. The opponent just doesn't know it yet. Baiting with a Shadow Punch, thinking the opponent is going to shield to try and debuff with a Zap Cannon, and the mind games pay off. Getting the Shadow Punch shielded, landing the Shadow Ball. That does way too much damage to that Registeel, and the opponent will resign the match. There's a massive core breaker on the lead, and its name is Talonflame. Talonflame has a winning matchup against this entire team, so this will be a very difficult game to play out of. Pangoro just going to stay in this matchup, spam out as many Night Slashes as it possibly can. Opponent shields the first, maybe worried about a Pangoro potentially running Rock Slide. It can learn Rock Slide in its moveset, but this season, most people are not running Rock Slide. Talonflame farms up to 100 energy there at the back-to-back flies. Pangoro commits the shield and shields a flame charge. That's gotta hurt, as now this Talonflame's damage is only increasing. Pangoro is gonna fire off a Night Slash. If the Night Slash can be shielded and maybe landing a close combat could be the key to victory here. Opponent is gonna let that through. We do see a boost from the Panda Bear, firing off another Night Slash at this Talonflame. Talonflame is gonna let it go. In comes Malamar. Malamar swiftly answered with the Clefable, but in the back is Licky Licky, and this is such a bad thing to see if you have a Shadow Gengar in the back, because whether it's by virtue of Licky Licky being a complete wall to anything Ghost, or Malamar having that lightning fast pacing and being able to make it to a foul play, unfortunately, this backline really just has nowhere for the Shadow Gengar to go. Shadow Ball will connect. That just does too much damage to this Clefable. Clefable will fire off the Moonblast. Moonblast is going to connect, but that's just not enough damage. And Licky Licky should be able to pick up a knockout here with a Body Slam. Oh, the Body Slam doesn't KO. In comes the Gengar. Aggressive switch to the Malamar, and that will do it, as Shadow Gengar cannot take a hit whatsoever, and the opponent's Malamar ends up sweeping the endgame. Hopping into the final match, Pangoro versus Shadow Ampharos, both Pokemon that have significantly better pacing this season. Pangoro is going to bait with a Night Slash. Ampharos is going to commit a shield. Ampharos farming up a ton of energy, and they play to a CMP tie that they do not win. Pangoro firing off the close combat, grabbing both shields from the opponent, and I think at this point, yeah, you just let the Pangoro go. Opponent goes for a brutal swing. They should be trailblazing there. Now they're forced to throw again, so the opponent not throwing their charge moves in the correct order. We're now going to see the shield from Pangoro. Opponent switches into their own Pangoro, and now they're just getting hit with a close combat. It's all going wrong for the opponent. They get fully one-shot. Back in comes the Ampharos. Ampharos swiftly answered with the Clefable. No pun intended, Clefable is going to no-shield, as Ampharos will fire off its energy. Ampharos is running Focus Blast, so they are actually not running the updated moveset of the Trailblaze plus Brutal Swing. Instead, they're running Focus Blast. Swift plus a Fairy Wind picks up the KO in the back. Oh no, it's Licky Licky again! Oh, this is so bad. It's Licky Licky again. Shadow Gengar cannot escape the normal types. Is this the body slam catch, though? Is it the body slam catch? It is! Oh, what a beautiful catch. Shadow Gengar doing what it does best at this point when there's a normal type in the back. Being a damage sponge, Shadow Ball will pick up the knockout, but getting that catch should hopefully be game winning here. Licky Licky is quite bulky, but Moonblast is a very good charge attack. Moonblast plus a couple Fairy Winds are enough to knock out Licky Licky and secure victory. All in all, Shadow Gengar is an incredibly cool pick and is honestly one of the more fun anti-meta Pokemon that you can run in the Ultra League. It is very frail, and by virtue, it's going to be a difficult Pokemon to use. So it's a Pokemon for those who really favor aggressive play styles. Like we saw multiple games where he would aggressively switch it in to try and get an energy lead to be able to outpace. But that increased damage on Shadow Punch, combining that with Gengar's monster attack stat, and combining that with the 20% multiplier from Shadow Punch is actually really scary from Gengar now. And normally before, it was kind of a bait game. If you no-shielded a Shadow Punch, you were okay. But now, I don't think you're nearly as okay. So Shadow Gengar, definitely a step up this season. It still falls firmly into the anti-meta role just because it's so frail. It's really hard to list a Pokemon that is that glassy as like a must-build Pokemon. So you can definitely get wins without it. And there's a wide variety of movesets you can run as well. Whereas something like Shadow Dusknoir is kind of locked into that Shadow Punch Shadow Ball. Gengar can run Sludge Bomb, it can run Focus Blast, it has some coverage moves that it can run if you're wanting to run it, but don't necessarily want to get completely cooked by every Licky Licky in the 3 surrounding zip codes. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.